hppodcraft.com.
The long conversation of Zamakona and his visitors took place in the green-blue twilight of the grove just outside the temple door. Some of the men reclined on the weeds and moss besides the half-vanished walk, while others, including the Spaniard and the chief spokesman of the Sath party, sat on the occasional low monolithic pillars that lined the temple approach. Almost a whole terrestrial day must have been consumed in the colloquy, for Zamakona felt the need for food several times and ate from his well-stocked pack, while some of the Sath party went back for provisions to the roadway where they had left the animals on which they had ridden. At length, the prime leader of the party brought the discourse to a close and indicated that the time had come to proceed to the city.
That was the opening of Chapter 5 of the H.P. Lovecraft Zelia Bishop collaboration, The Mound. This is the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
At hppodcraft.com, I am Chris Lackey.
And I am Chad Pfeiffer, and that was our reader for this week and the last couple of weeks, Jimmy Aiken.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good job.
We want to plow through the story today, we've got left of it, so let's get some announcements out of the way. As usual, we're still selling soundtracks from the music from the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast. Donate $10 for Volume 2, $15 or more, and you get Volumes 1 and 2. We send it as a digital download.
Yep.
And that is that. Chris, you've got your
April
coming up,
15th in London is going to be H.P. Lovecraft Reanimated, which is going to be kind of a multimedia entertainment show at a place called the Horse Hospital. April 15th. Tickets are still on sale, but they're selling out relatively quickly, so you might want to get them if you think you're going to be in London around that time.
A while back, I'd mentioned on the show that I went to go see this staged reading of Reanimator the Musical here in L.A. that Stuart Gordon was doing. Well, they finally got funding, and the show's playing right now.
Yes, I saw that.
It's
I
getting
haven't
great
seen the
reviews
show.
around town. I haven't seen it either, but apparently it's everything I saw in the reading, but they've staged it, and there's gore and effects. I think they have a little splash zone in the audience. And
like an area where if you sit, you'll get gooed on?
Yeah, you'll get gore all over you.
A la
pretty cool.
Gallagher kind of thing?
Yeah. I have this a creepy friend who was like, I found out where you can sit if you want to see the most nudity. So apparently there's that too.
There's nudity in it?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Well, come on, it's Stuart Gordon.
Right. Who does Gallagher play in it?
Gallagher is Herbert West.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's good that he's getting away. He's a little old for the part, but all right.
I know, but nobody works a watermelon like that guy.
That's true.
George Wendt is in it still, though. Norm from
yeah.
Cheers. Yeah, he's still playing Halsey.
Dr. Halsey.
So there's that if you want to check it out. And also lots of news on the Facebook page this week about Mountain of Madness taking a dive.
Yeah, that's been big chatter, but it seemed unlikely to me that the studios would be willing to put $150 million into an R-rated horror film.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we had a conversation about it a few shows ago that turned out to be pretty prescient because that's exactly what happened. They said, wait a minute, this is a rated R horror movie. We're not putting $500 million into this.
It's a shame because I think it would have been really cool to have a Lovecraft movie be big time, but maybe somebody else will do it and it'll be better and it won't be... that's I have personal aside. They want to do the movie R. However, I don't really think it needs to be an R-rated film. The only really gory bit is when the scientists' bodies, after the elder things kind of wake up and they dissect them, they discover the vivisected bodies. And I think you could show that in a way that isn't as gory.
Yeah, you just show a little bit of gore and then cut back to the guys who discover it and they just all go, oh, that's so gross, like that. And then you'll know that it's horrific what they're looking at.
It'll be like a honey badger eating a cobra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, I could take care of all these problems for Hollywood. I don't know why they never.
Yeah, why aren't they asking you? Anyway, let's get into this.
All right. Well, I'm guessing that listeners that have come this far with us don't need much of a summary, but here's a really quick one. In the Mound thus far, we've got our American Indian ethnologist who's in Oklahoma studying ghosts who haunt a mound where locals keep disappearing. This ethnologist goes up to the mound. He finds a cylinder there that contains a 400-year-old account by a Spanish explorer named Zamakona of his time in an underground world, which is presumably below this mound. So the ethnologist takes the account back to his lodging, translates the account, and that translation is more or less the story that we've been looking at. Zamakona, during his time exploring with Coronado, he was told by American Indians that there was this underground realm of golden cities. So he traveled down through a passageway and a ravine to find this world. He finds it. There's old ones down there who are these basic alien half-ghost creatures who look sort of like Native Americans. And, they're these pervert fascist socialists who create half-human corpse slaves, and they can become immaterial at will.
They ride on half unicorn, half human creatures.
Exactly. They enjoy orgies, and they're happy to get intelligence of the world above, which they retreated from centuries before, and they decide that they're going to be very hospitable with Zamacona. Unfortunately, though, now that he's there, he can never leave.
Right.
By their edict. So that's where we are. We had left off right after Zamacona's first meeting with the Old Ones, detailed in that opening reading.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they've had this day-long conversation, exchanging information mentally, now it's time for them to jump on those animals, those unicorns, and go into the city. What are they called? The Gyayathan?
Gyayathan, that's correct.
They describe them as great floundering white things with black fur on their backs, a rudimentary horn in the center of their foreheads, and an unmistakable trace of human or anthropoid blood in their flat-nosed, bulging-lipped faces.
Sounds a little racist to me.
I think I remember seeing some illustrations of these things.
Who did them? Do you remember?
No. Well, they're part human.
Yeah.
And they eat. There's this slave class, which is also part human, and that's the principal meat source of everybody, and they eat that stuff.
Yeah.
They're also kind of part reptilian because they come from Yoth, which is that...
The red world.
Yeah, the red world that's even more subterranean, and the people there they think were some kind of reptilian race, which made me think maybe they're the same as the creatures in the Nameless City, the crocodile men.
Yeah, could be.
That's where the things are from, so they're kind of reptilian too.
Right.
You'd highlighted a passage here. Zamacona climbs, even though it repels him, he climbs on one of these unicorn deals, and he goes off with the aliens for the city. They're given a tour along the way. They see all sorts of cities and buildings, but there's this one squat temple they pay special attention to. It had been built to house a black toad idol called, help me with this, Tsathoggua?
Yeah, that's right, Tsathoggua. Now, Tsathoggua now that's not Lovecraft. That actually has come up with Tsathoggua.
Oh, really?
He borrowed that from Clark Ashton Smith.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I guess he has cribbed some things here and there, but this is the first time I can think of him really taking something from somebody else's.
Yeah, and incorporating it into his mythology. I believe Tsathoggua was first mentioned in The Tale of Satampa Zeros.
That's the Smith story. Well, as they're talking about Tsathoggua, it says this.
Yothic legend said that it had come from a mysterious inner realm beneath the red-litten world, a black realm of peculiar sensed beings, which had no light at all, but which had great civilizations and mighty gods, before ever the reptilian quadrupeds of Yoth had come into being. Many images of Tsathoggua existed in Yoth, all of which were alleged to have come from the black inner realm, and which were supposed by Yothic archaeologists to represent the aeon-extinct race of that realm. The black realm, called Nkai in the Yothic manuscripts, had been explored as thoroughly as possible by these archaeologists, and singular stone troughs or burrows had excited infinite speculation.
So that's where the thing had come from. I think it's interesting that within Sath, there's the subterranean world of Yoth, and then even within Yoth, there's even a further civilization that they excavated at one point, this Nakai. Yeah. Now, at some point, some archaeologists from Sath went below Yoth to this realm.
Yeah, to the Redland world. Mm-hmm.
Well, because when they found the figure of Tsathoggua and Yoth, and they brought it up, and then because people are all into cults and stuff, they started worshiping Tsathoggua in Sath, and it became like a big deal, like it rivaled even Yig and Tulu.
Mm-hmm.
But then some archaeologists went down into that Nakai area, and they found this civilization of like amorphous lumps of black slime that could take shapes, and that's where the god had come from, and that freaked them out. So they sealed up the passageway and they banned the cult.
Yeah. Now that, for me, I like that kind of stuff. I'm into that kind of Lovecraftian myth kind of thing. Where you've got these stories about these ancient civilizations, and these people found some stuff they didn't like, and it freaked them out, and they started a cult, and all that.
Yeah.
I'm into that. That part of the story I dig.
I don't, but that's cool. I liked the black amorphous things that could change shape, and I mean that was an interesting thing. But I'm still not I have to apologize to the listeners. We're getting some responses where people are like, I actually like this story, and I'm really sorry I don't like it.
You can't help it though, dude. If you don't like it, you don't like it.
I just can't help it. Yeah, it's no good to me. Anyway, they arrive at Sath on this wagon train of unicorns, and it's very large. It's very impressive. It's beautiful. Although Zamacona is getting freaked out by these half-human creatures doing the farming.
Right. Well, they're like the zombie people that are out doing some farming stuff, and they're missing like limbs, and some of them are missing heads and stuff.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. You think a head's pretty important?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's because the people are such creeps there that they torture these things, right?
Right. Yeah.
They need new fun things to do, so they'll take these servants and lop off a head or switch their organs around. Or
They just mess them up and then they put them back to work, which is really just weird and gross and not particularly interesting.
yeah, it's certainly depraved. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they give that whole impression when the city's huge, but like there's these big towers there, and nobody really even uses the tops of the towers anymore, so they're in disrepair. It's like we're seeing the civilization that had reached a scientific apex and enlightenment at some point in the past, and then because of the privilege that they were afforded through those developments, they fell into decadence.
Right.
One thing that's awesome during the travels, they pause at these temples for Yig and Tulu and Nug and Yeb and the not to be named one, it says. But his main guide, he takes him into all these, and each one they kind of check out the orgies that are going on in there.
Zamakona is not into it because he's pretty Catholic, so it makes him pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, I imagine it would be a little strange. There's one squat black temple that had been turned into a shrine of Shub-Niggurath,
Yeah.
the all-mother and wife of the not-to-be-named one. So, yeah, you told me before that Shub-Niggurath was married, so there you go.
Supposedly to Yog-Sothoth. At some point, Lovecraft said that in one of his letters.
So the not-to-be-named one then would be Yog-Sothoth.
Yeah. If we're sticking with what Lovecraft said later in one of his letters.
Yeah.
Even though typically the not-to-be-named one, or he who should not be named, is typically Hastur.
Well, Shub-Niggurath could be married to a couple dudes.
Who knows? That's something. Actually, I've been getting quite a few emails lately about people. I don't know if you've been getting them as well, because sometimes they come to both Chad and I don't know if you've been reading them, in some forum talk, where people are talking about Lovecraft in canon, like whether this is a canon Lovecraft story. And I don't think that concept of canon really applies with Lovecraft, because he always changed things around to suit whatever story he was specifically working on at a time.
Yeah.
And he didn't really feel obligated to stick with any one particular kind of mythology or story even. Like, he would just write it one way. If he later on he wanted it to be a different way, he would just change it. So there is really nothing that is official Lovecraft canon. He just wrote a bunch of different things. Some of it's similar to others. And you just pick and choose and make up your own canon on whatever you want to that's out there. But there's nothing official that exact. So this story, is it official Lovecraft story? Well, he wrote it.
Yeah.
That's as official as, these types of things get.
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially when you think that a lot of these things weren't published till after he was dead.
Yeah.
I would say like Charles Dexter Ward or Dream Quest are probably, if you're a completist, you'd want to read those things. But are they? I don't know if you'd say that's part of the canon because they weren't published. I don't know. Like I'm going through the Sherlock Holmes books now, and there's definitely a canon there. There's like 55 short stories, and there's 4 novels, and It's very definite. For the first time in a while, I've been reading more. I just haven't had a lot of time to read over the last year, and so Lovecraft, when I do read, it's this kind of stuff. Like I've been reading Sax Rohmer's Fu Manchu book, which are fun but not great. But Sherlock Holmes was so well written, and when you get to break away from, say, The Mound and read something by Conan Doyle that's like gripping and quick, it really makes coming back to this a chore.
Oh, yeah.
Like I gotta. Anyway.
So anyway, yeah. Just on that, Lovecraft doesn't really have canon. I don't even think that concept was something that people really stuck to. I think that's more of a modern construct, the canon. Like this is when somebody creates a universe and these are the rules and this is what actually happened and this is what didn't happen. I feel like that's kind of a Star Wars, Star Trek kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's an elastic term. I mean, certainly he didn't define his mythology. That was something that kind of happened later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But canon more specifically refers to what is the series of things that you need to read to have an author's kind of complete.
Right.
But, you use that in terms of what's the canon of Western literature, for example. If you go through high school, you read this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's canon and what's not.
I mean, Lovecraft wrote it, so there you go. The end.
One, I don't think Zelia had much to do with it other than...
Again, she didn't. She gave him an idea.
Mound.
That was it.
Yeah.
She said, hey, there's this ghost, there's a ghost at night that's a headless woman, and there's a ghost at day who's a guy. Go.
Right. Well, on this trip, too, there's this arena on the outskirts of town that the guide's got a stupid name, too. It's like Gil Hatha Yin. It's his main guy that he wants to take him out to the AT&T Sports Center or whatever it is on the outskirts of Sath. And they're that sophisticated. They have sponsorships, too. So he doesn't want to go, though, because he's just like, you know what? That I don't need to see.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on in there. So they finish the tour, and then it sort of turns into The Prisoner, right? They give him a house in the suburbs.
Yeah.
He's got his own affection group to hang out with.
Yeah, they don't have families or wives or husbands. They have
Yeah.
affection groups, and they're just
Right.
people that they hang out with and they live with, and talk about their problems.
He gets
and-
noble women of the most extreme and art-enhanced beauty.
Yeah,
They have plastic surgery. It's like
they do.
the Real Housewives of Sath.
It is the Real Housewives of Sath. Oh,
They give him a schedule, where it's like you do some guest lectures in the morning.
Yeah.
You hit the library to learn about Sath. You beat on some slaves. Hit the buffet. Maybe it's Pancake Tuesday. Then you get a little orgy in
Yeah.
before bed. Catch Scooby-Doo. Whatever. They've got it all lined out for him, and Zamacona settles into this new world, and that takes us into chapter
6.
Thus was Panfilo de Zamacona y Núñez absorbed for 4 years into the life of the sinister city of Sath, in the blue-litten netherworld of Cainyan. All that he learned and saw and did is clearly not told in his manuscript, for a pious reticence overcame him when he began to write in his native Spanish tongue, and he dared not set everything down. Much he consistently viewed with repulsion, and many things he steadfastly refrained from seeing or doing or eating. For other things he atoned by frequent counting of the beads of his rosary. He explored the entire world of Cainyan, including the deserted machine cities of the Middle Period on the gorse-grown plain of Nith, and made one descent into the red-litten world of Yath to see the Cyclopean ruins. He witnessed prodigies of craft and machinery which left him breathless, and beheld human metamorphoses, dematerializations, rematerializations, and reanimations, which made him cross himself again and again. His very capacity for astonishment was blunted by the plethora of new marvels which every day brought him.
Yeah.
So there's lots of amazing stuff to look at, but, he wants to leave.
4 years. Well, what's funny about that? There's the one line in there. Much he consistently viewed with repulsion, and many things he steadfastly refrained from seeing or doing or eating. So that's it. But for other things, he atoned with frequent counting of the beads of his rosary. So he's doing some naughty stuff too. He's not being completely, no, I'm Catholic. I don't do those things. He's probably, getting a little tickle on his nuts and stuff, things like that.
That's the primary means of communication in the affection group.
Yeah, it's a little
The
nut tickle.
the nut tickle. So he wants to leave because the people are screwed up, and he feels guilty about
Right.
the dirty business he's been getting involved in. It just sounds really wild down there. The people, they need new sensations. They're always turning into vapor and then turning back again. And Zamacona, I think once he even tries to make a journey out, but he gets stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I don't think that's a good idea. You should go home. So he resolves he's going to write an account of what's going down on there, and he's going to keep it in this cylinder of Tulu metal so that if he does make it, somebody will find it, and the metal will be evidence that he's not lying.
Exactly.
He does something smart. He starts holding back info a bit on the outside world.
Because he's afraid that they're going to start thinking he is not useful anymore, and they'll do something rotten to him, eat him, or make him a meat slave or whatever. So he just kind of starts going, well, that's a whole other story. I'm going to tell you about that some other time, but let's talk about this. So he just keeps throwing out these things to sort of keep him interested, but not give him any specific details.
The more he learns about the elements of the Sath society, the more freaked out he gets, and the more apprehensive he is, and the more he wants to leave.
Yeah.
The more Zamacona studied these things, the more apprehensive about the future he became, because he saw that the omnipresent moral and intellectual disintegration was a tremendously deep-seated and ominously accelerating movement. Even during his stay, the signs of decay multiplied. Rationalism degenerated more and more into a fanatical and orgiastic superstition, centering in a lavish adoration of the magnetic Tulu metal, and tolerance steadily dissolved into a series of frenzied hatreds, especially towards the outer world of which the scholars were learning so much from him. At times, he almost feared that the people might someday lose their age-long apathy and brokenness and turn like desperate rats against the unknown lands above them, sweeping all before them by virtue of their singular and still remembered scientific powers. But for the present, they fought their boredom and sense of emptiness in other ways, multiplying their hideous emotional outlets and increasing the mad grotesqueness and abnormality of their diversions.
It's a scary situation.
this is one thing that really, not one thing. This is one of the many things that bugged me about this story. Is this whole culture doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. There's certain things that they do. You know, they're really scientific, but they still worship these gods for no reason other than aesthetic qualities. Like I just don't understand that mindset doesn't make sense to me, and not in a cool way where I can't get my head around it because it's so big. It feels artificial.
Well, I don't know. The Western world, we're pretty technologically and scientifically advanced, yet people are still attending church. And a lot of people, I don't know how fundamental those beliefs are for them. They go for family reasons or social reasons.
Yeah, but the way I read it, and that I understand, but the way I read this is that nobody actually believes in any of these things, yet they all still do it.
Yeah.
So it's
because it's cool.
Because it's cool, I guess. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right when I read that, and it still doesn't set well with me.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sit well with Zamacona either, and he wants to leave. Now, luckily, there's a woman with a heart of gold in his affection group.
Talayub?
Oh, sweet Talayub. She's a woman of moderate beauty and at least average intelligence.
Yeah, she's all right. She can get by. She reads a book every month.
I feel so bad. Talayub actually, she's the one character in the whole story that I really connected with. I mean, I feel bad for her because she just kind of gets used by Zamacona.
She totally gets used by Zamacona. He convinces her to marry him, and she's kind of into it because it's sort of an old-fashioned idea in her society. But she really digs him, and she thinks he's neat, so she's like, "Yeah, I'll marry you." So they flip and get married.
Yeah, they're hooked up together, and because she's descended from gatekeepers, the people that used to watch the passages into this subterranean world.
Yep.
As such, she knows about one gate that leads out. This would be our mound, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
No, everybody else has kind of forgotten about it. So she says, I can, if you take me with you, I'll lead you out.
Yeah, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that'll be cool." All the while thinking secretly to himself, "Well, I'll ditch her when I get to the above ground, and I'll either hook up with an Indian princess or a lady of Spain. I'll have all these choices because I'll have so much money I can pick whatever I want." I'm like, "But you jerk! Why would you?"
I know. He's such a jerk. Well, anyway, so he gets together with her, and they get a couple of these were unicorn deals, and they climb
unicorns.
on. Well,
they'll turn from a man into a unicorn. They're a hybrid between man and unicorn.
All right, they're manimals.
No,
they climb on their.
Manimals.
Why aren't they manimals?
Because that is a playboy scientist whose father had given him the power to turn into animals.
Oh, you're saying there's only one manimal?
There's only one manimal.
Yeah, Simon McCorkindale. Oh, well, that's true. I guess you're right. How dare I? These half-human hybrid unicorns. Anyway, they climb on them and they're going up. They travel up to the passage.
Well, to get there, it's a trail that hasn't been used in a long time, and it's hard to get through this trail because it's been overgrown. And one of the beasts of burden gets just so annoyed with having to do it that he turns around and splits. And they're like, "Oh, rats! He's going to tell everybody that we're up here doing this business, so we better hurry."
Yeah, that's bad medicine.
So they get up to this cave, and it's still unguarded, and they start to go through it and have their little expedition, but they get busted. The guys come up and say, "All right, you guys have to come back." And they go, "Okay." Zamacona doesn't get punished for it. No. However, Talayub.
Yeah, Talayub, she totally gets punished for it because she should have known better. This is seen as treasonous. And she gets delivered to the arena where she will be used to be mutilated and abused, and then her mutilated form will be reanimated, and they'll give her a job, which is to be a headless sentry at night at that exit they tried to leave.
The new exit they picked, yeah.
And another guy who we've never met and is totally unaffiliated with these characters is going to be the guy that works days. So that basically at this point you learn why those people are up there.
Yep.
And it's not even him. When they introduced her character, I thought, oh, here it is. It's going to be some love story where they try to make it out and it doesn't work out. And they both get punished. Because they kind of set that up with the ghost story in the beginning. Clearly, there's some relationship between the man and the woman, and what is it? And did he hurt her? And blah blah blah. And then when we get to this, it's like, no, it's the woman. There's a completely unrelated guy up there, and I didn't know if I could be more disappointed in the story, but this is the lowest point for me. I just thought, well, this is the worst kind of.
What? Yeah, that's what I kept saying. I'm like, you gotta be. That's it. That is lame.
Yeah. So anyway, the Zamacona's like, well, I know I'll be put up to the same fate eventually if I don't behave, but I still can't live down here. So I'm going to practice becoming immaterial. I'm going to go out ghost style. And that's what he determines. And the last entry in his manuscript is, "It is later than I thought. I must go." That's the end of it, and that takes us into our final chapter, chapter 7. It's dawn. The ethnologist has been up all night reading this account.
Mm-hmm.
He's wondering, is this some kind of joke? Is this some kind of fraud? He tries to recruit some folks to go back to the mound with him, but obviously nobody wants to do that. And he says, okay,
No,
but, I got to do it. There's one good line here. It says, I set out with the kind of bravado we display in nightmares. When knowing we are dreaming, we plunge desperately into still thicker horrors for the sake of having the whole thing over the sooner. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was a good line.
Yeah.
I like that one.
So he heads up there.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens?
He's still got his Gray Eagle's talisman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hung around his neck. So he goes up to the mound, starts digging around, trying to figure out if he can find anything else, and then it starts to give way underneath his feet, and he kind of jumps back. But as he does, the whole thing collapses in, and he falls inside.
Yeah, and he had to dig it out with his trench knife, because the pick and shovel that he'd left up there previously were gone when he showed up, so he doesn't know what happened to those. But that passage reveals itself. He goes underground. He starts exploring. There's this kind of Chester Copperpot moment where he finds the belongings of other explorers that have gone down there. There's the 2 college students from 1915 who had disappeared. Freaks him out a little bit.
He finds a flashlight down there, I think, too.
But he keeps going. It says, as a Virginian, I felt the blood of my ancestral fighters and gentlemen adventurers pounding a protest against retreat. So I thought that was good. Big surprise. He comes across the subterranean passage that Zamacona had described from when he almost escaped. There's the figures of Tulu and Yig and all the bas-reliefs and that kind of thing.
Right.
And he starts going crazy a little, especially when he sees there's all this debris and tokens from the outside world that have ended up down here, including his pick and shovel. Yeah.
Like, how did they get in here? This doesn't make any sense.
And then there's the flopping, padding sound coming, and he sees something that makes him flee, run up, pass out on the mound. And then eventually when he comes to, he leaves Binger and he doesn't tell anybody anything.
Yep.
We get it in the last paragraphs here. Now, he had cited early in the tale, there's a guy named Heaton who had gone to the mound in 91 and had come back as a village idiot, babbling for 8 years about all this stuff.
He said specifically, that white man, oh my God, what they did to him.
Well, I saw the same thing that poor Heaton saw, and I saw it after reading the manuscript, so I know more of its history than he did. That makes it worse, for I know all that it implies. All that must still be brooding and festering and waiting down there. I told you it had padded mechanically towards me out of the narrow passage, and it stood sentry-like at the entrance between the frightful idola of Yig and Tulu. That was very natural and inevitable, because the thing was a sentry. It had been made a sentry for punishment, and it was quite dead, besides lacking head, arms, lower legs, and other customary parts of a human being. Yes, it had been a very human being once, and what is more, it had been white. Very obviously, if that manuscript was as true as I think it was, this being had been used for the diversions of the amphitheater, or its life had become wholly extinct and supplanted by automatic impulses controlled from outside. On its white and only slightly hairy chest, some letters had been gashed or branded. I had not stopped to investigate, but had merely noted that they were in an awkward and fumbling Spanish. An awkward Spanish, implying a kind of ironic use of the language by an alien inscriber familiar neither with the idiom nor the Roman letters used to record it. The inscription had read, Secuestrado a voluntad de Hinayan en el cuerpo decapitado de Tlayub. Seized by the will of Kinyan in the headless body of Tlayub.
That's
the end of the story. Well, yeah, that was stupid. I assume that's the body of, being that he's white, it's the body of Zamacona.
He's some kind of, well, I can't really imagine what he looks like because he doesn't have a head or arms or lower legs or, I mean, what is it?
Yeah, what the heck? Is he walking around just on his butt cheeks? Is that what he's doing?
Oh man, that's horrific. Now
it's kind of scary.
Yeah, the true horror of the story is struck home. In retrospect, the rest of it was good. Now that you revealed what when he was walking around on his butt cheeks.
No, they said his lower legs were missing, so he, I guess, was walking on his knee stumps or something like that.
I don't know.
But what's the point? Like, why? I mean, it's gross, but why would you be scared of something that has not a head, arms, and not even legs? Like, what's it gonna do to you?
Oh, I don't know. I get just because it's so horrific and crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's one of those things that just seems gross, and then I thought about it, and I go, well, it's just kind of gross. It's not that scary.
I don't know what to say, man. I didn't like it, and we spent 3 episodes on it. I hope that we've at least had some fun with it, or we've sussed out the things that are interesting about it. But
yeah, there's a few things, especially the first chapter, man. I love it. I just wish that the the following 6 chapters weren't in existence anymore.
I mean, I appreciate that he has laid out. There's a lot of science fiction world building here, and I can appreciate that. It's just not. I just didn't think it was told that well.
No, it wasn't told that well. It's not that good or interesting. Like I have no reason why I would ever want to return to this world. I feel like with good science fiction, somebody creates a world and it's just captivating, and you really want to keep going back to it. I found no such interest. I didn't even like being there the first time.
So, any interesting facts about the story other than what we've talked about? I know that.
We talked about it a little bit up front. Obviously Lovecraft Ghost wrote this thing. It started off with the plot synopsis of there is an Indian mound near here which is haunted by headless ghosts. Sometimes it is a woman. So that is the kernel that Lovecraft started the whole story with. He wrote it in December of 1929 to January 1930. So just a couple months he spent working on it. I can't imagine he spent that long working on it.
Now, it wasn't published, though, while he was alive.
No. It didn't come out until 1940. And Weird Tales. How the heck did this thing get published?
Well, because August Derleth, he made some pretty heavy cuts.
Ah, yes.
And I don't know what that looks like, but over the years, that was the version that was reprinted until I believe it was restored in the Horror in the Museum and other revisions.
Oh, right, yeah.
So the full version is in there. The Love Dead, that anthology it's got the abridged Derleth version in it.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I have that. I have that Love Dead.
I think you either don't publish it. I don't know if you should cut it. I don't know. It's one of those things I'm not sure about. I wonder if it's better because it's edited, but it's such a strange thing to edit somebody else's work without their input.
It's tough. I mean, again, I hate jumping on Lovecraft about any of this stuff because I write terrible things and I just don't let anybody see them. And I hate to think if I died that people would start going through my computer, like getting all the really crappy stories that I've written, publishing my dumbass emails. Any of those things.
And look, I mean, if this was a worthy exercise, because I think it's practice for the world building that he does in Shadow Out of Time and at the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah, absolutely.
That comes out in a really cool way. So, yeah, man, whether this should have been published or not, I'm not sure. Well, next time we have Medusa's Coil.
Medusa's Coil, the last of the Zelia Bishop stories.
Is that a long one?
I don't.
Well, long or short, I heard it's not too good, so I don't think we're going to dedicate a ton of episodes to it. So we've got that coming up next, and then the readings of The Picture of the House and From Beyond are going to be released very soon.
Very soon, finally. Hopefully in a week. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So there's that, and I'd like to thank everybody for taking this trip with us. And
thank Jimmy for his fine readings and his feedback and his research. And I appreciate everything you've done for us. I can't quite agree with you on this one, Jimmy, but good job.
Yeah, I love you anyway.
With that, I'm Chris Lackey.
I'm Chad Pfeiffer.
And this has been the HP Lovecraft Literary Podcast.
At hppodcraft.com.
hppodcraft.com.